I'd been made redundant from a job that I liked very much, working for a newspaper, and I was looking for another job with a sort of difference and excitement. And I got a job working for the managing director of an investigation agency as his personal assistant. It was a very small firm, and this job came up with McDonald's, and he didn't really have enough investigators, I think, so he asked me if I would fulfill that role as well. It was up a narrow staircase into a tiny room full of, well, I say full of bodies. There weren't very many people there, probably half a dozen on the first time that I went there. The impression was that there were a lot because it was such a small, cramped space. There were shelves floor to ceiling in one corner of the room, which were pretty full of leaflets and things, some of which I was asked to, well, I wasn't asked by the group, but I was asked by the agency if they related to McDonald's to take copies of. On one side of the room there was a very rickety table which at one time absolutely collapsed with everything on top of it. Telephone fell on it in a heap on the floor. When I left, each time that I attended a meeting, I would jot down very quickly, as best I could remember, everything that took place, make out a report, give it to the managing director of the investigation agency, and from that he would make up a report which he would send to McDonald's. I felt very uncomfortable doing it. I didn't like it at all. And as soon as I heard that writs had been served and I was no longer needed, then I just got out of it as quickly as I could. It may have been something to do with my own paranoia, but I had the feeling that they were a little bit suspicious because I was new. They didn't know me, they didn't know who I was or where I'd come from. But I think they were quite willing to accept me, and if I got involved in helping them stuff envelopes and that sort of thing, we all sort of chatted together. And we did actually go up to the pub a couple of times after meetings, and we just chatted, and they seemed to be quite friendly. I could have quite got involved in what they were doing, I think. It wasn't at all against my beliefs. There may well have been at least 3 investigators in the room at one time, and perhaps only maximum of 7 or 8 people altogether. So it's quite a high percentage, I suppose, of people attending the meeting. I had the feeling that the McDonald's issue was a fairly low priority at this time when I was attending the meetings. It may well have been something quite important before I got involved, but it came quite low down on the agenda, maybe point 6 or something like that. I was asked to introduce another person into the group. There were several investigators, some of them were freelance, some of them I didn't, or a couple of them I didn't even know. And she came as a freelance, and I met her and took her along there and introduced her as a friend of mine. She must have been doing quite well. She used to drive up in a black BMW. We used to take a lift. She used to give me a lift in it. We stopped not far away from the meeting, parked the car, and then we'd walk to the meeting. I was quite surprised when she came along for the first time, because I thought I had to sort of dress down and wear sandals and sort of hippie type clothes, you know. But she came along with quite flashy jewellery and long tapered painted fingernails and makeup, and she didn't, to my mind, look as though, well, I thought that people would have suspected that she wasn't one of them, basically, but in actual fact I think she got involved quite deeply afterwards, so they can't have been too suspicious of her. Now, I've heard that she was involved in some meetings that they had, some demonstrations maybe. She was giving out leaflets. I think she's even been photographed giving out leaflets. In fact, I know because I was shown a photograph of her in court and I had to identify her. Actually, I have heard a rumour that she got involved with, actually romantically, I think, with one of the members of the group, but I don't know that for sure, I just heard that. They were a group of people who obviously had strong feelings about what is happening to the environment and generally our planet today, and are actually doing something about it instead of just talking and waiting for someone else to do something about it. And I think that's a very good thing. I'd been given the impression by the agency that they could possibly be quite dangerous, and if I'd given them my telephone number or address and they found out who I was, I could have been under some threat. But in the end I found out that that wasn't at all the case.